I was born and raised in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. I came to the States. I studied at Southern, studied theology at Southern. Soon after, I got my MBA in finance and management. I worked for the church for a number of years. And after working for the church, I came to Orlando, and that's when I started working in business. And it was during that time where I got exposed to different things. For some reason, I wanted to have this elaborate birthday. So my friend was like, you know what, we're gonna go this place and we're gonna do cocaine. I know it's your first time. So I did it for the first time, stayed up about 12 hours. And at the time, it was like the most amazing feeling that I've ever had. And it was getting pretty bad. And I coupled with cocaine and alcohol, you mix the two. So during that time, I almost died about twice. I had one particular time where I was out and I was so drunk that I remember making a right turn and I blacked out. So I went from Colonial all the way on the 408, and they found me on the turnpike. On the side of the road on the turnpike with the car on, and I was passed out. And I couldn't tell you how I got to the turnpike from Colonial, but God in His miracle saved me. I had another time where it was New Year's Eve. And I was high and drunk, and I remember get one more drink. And as I went in my car to back up, I passed out. My foot was on the brakes and my hand was in reverse. And I passed out with my hand on the brake, my foot on the brakes, and my hand in reverse. All it will take is just one slip, and my car was heading back into the bar. So during that time, I was really struggling. And what ended up happening is that, I got promoted on my job. So I was just making a lot more income at the time. And I was traveling for work at this time, and while I was on the job, I hosted a party or whatever. I used to supply drugs as well, right? So I was there, and everybody was around, and and it was all cocaine. And what ended up happening is that I just had too much, and I knew I had to work the next day. And what ended up happening is I was driving home back to the hotel. I got lost. Well, I got lost and I was tired. And the light stopped. That was it. I passed out. My head was on the steering wheel, and the story goes where the cop told me that he passed me, went down the street, turned around, passed me again, and my car was still lying in the middle of the road. And he came back a third time, and he thought that I was dead. That's what he told me. He thought I was dead. Like, you've been there for like an hour in the middle of the road. So he got me, and as he knocked on the window, I was startled. And, he came out and he was asking me like, are you all right? And I was stone drunk at the time. And around me, I had a lot of drugs on the car seat. So he pulled me out, and all I can remember is he searching me and he asked me if I had any drugs in me, and I said yes. And he asked me for my phone. He said, can I have your phone? I said, yeah. He said, do you have a friend to come pick you up. This is the biggest miracle in the whole story. He said, do you have a friend that could come pick you up? I said, well, I do, but I don't know where I'm at. And he said, can your friend come pick you up in the next 20 minutes? I said, I don't know. Let me try. So the cop calls my friend and asks my friend if he could pick me up. Now, this is at a traffic stop where there's alcohol and drugs in the car, and this cop is trying to get me out of a charge, right? And the cop told my friend, he said, listen, if I charge him for what he has in the car, for open bottle of alcohol, all the drugs he have in there, he's going to prison immediately. And the cop told him, he said, I don't want to damage his life. I want to give him a second chance in life. So I won't charge him with what he had in his car. I'm only going to charge him with enough to send him to rehab. And he said, I don't really want to book him, but I can't stop somebody and not book them. And, you know, the cop didn't have to do that. You know, I believe it was God that really spoke to the cop and gave me a chance, because all he charged me with was pretty much, it was just mainly for personal use. It was nothing. And so I went to jail that night. I spent one night in jail. And after I came out, I was on probation for about 3 years. And during the probationary period of time, you know, God really showed up, because now begin to struggle, right? So I was on probation for about 3 years. While I was there, I failed every drug test for the last year and a half. So I was supposed to do 90 days rehab. I failed 90 days rehab. I was supposed to do 120 days, and I failed in 120 days. Now, mind you, when you violate your probation, you go to jail, right? So I violated about 7 times, and I never went to jail, right? Some of the guys in my class asked me, like, how are you not going to jail violating your probation, felony probation for cocaine? I said, brother, I don't know. Maybe it's God. And while I was there, I was in a restaurant. And as I was leaving the restaurant, a guy calls me. And he said, I want to speak to you. And he said, I just feel impressed to pray for you. He said, I know that you're struggling. I said, how do you know you're struggling? He said, you know, I just know you're struggling. And that I want to pray for you, and I want to encourage you to go to church. So the guy, this is in a restaurant. A lot of people was there. He sat there and he prayed for me. And, you know, it was emotional. You know, I cried. It was pretty amazing. And he gave me his number. I tried calling the number back, and nobody never picked up. Another time, as I was there, I was battling back and forth with drugs, failing my tests, and, you know, wondering, you know, will I beat this drug? Because it was very tough, you know, to juggle rehab with working with your personal life is a bit of a challenge. So what ended up happening, I was coming from a job, and I think that night I only slept for 1 hour, right? And I was super tired. I went to a meeting, fall asleep. As I was driving back from the meeting, all of a sudden, my phone charger stopped working for no reason. Went into Walmart, and I'm in electronics, and I'm super tired, so I can't even find a charger. These 2 young people from a distance walks up to me, and they say, hey, we was walking in Walmart, and we just felt impressed to come talk to you and to pray for you. I said, really? He said, yeah. They said, you're the one. We need to pray for you. And they said, do you have anything you want to pray for? I said, well, you know, I'm struggling with drugs and alcohol. And then the girl turns around, and she was like, well, I used to struggle with the same thing, and God gave me the victory, and I'm clean. I said, really? She said, yeah. And she said, I'd like to pray for you right here in Walmart, but I want to encourage you to go to church. This is the second time somebody's been encouraging me to go to church, right? So they prayed with me. We exchanged numbers. I tried to call this girl back. No answer. All she sends me, they send me a picture of Jesus, and that was it. No phone call, no texting, no anything. So what ended up happening is I got kicked out the rehab program, the pre-training event. I got kicked out twice. And one last time, my counselor, he asked me, he said, you know what, Nigel, what do I have to do in order for you to beat drugs? I said, brother, I don't know. I said, I've been trying for 2 years. And he said, well, I want to do something different. I want to introduce you to Narcotics Anonymous. And I said, what's Narcotics Anonymous? He said, well, there's a meeting where you go to 7 days a week. He said, you have to go to this place for 90 days. You have to complete 90 meetings in 90 days. On top of counseling and on top of work. But you have to go 7 days a week. You can't miss a day. So I did 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days. And, you know, the first day I went to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, it was pretty amazing because I had to get a sponsor. And while I was there, this thing was get a sponsor and go to a meeting 7 days a week. So while I was there, I met a guy by the name of Paul. So he became my sponsor. And all this while, I was trying to beat drugs the wrong way. And what he told me, he said, listen, you cannot beat addiction without God. I was trying to beat addiction just by willpower and, you know, and just hoping that it would just go away. I was just hoping that it would just go away. But he said, there's two things you got to do. You have to give your life to God, and you have to change your company, right? People, places, and things. Those are the three things you have to change. You change those three things, you'll beat addiction. And then he said, you got to stop drinking. So the first day I went to Narcotics Anonymous, which was last year in May, I stopped. That was the last day I ever took a drug or a drink. And when I realized, it's like the light switch came on when I realized that drinking was the root of my problem. Because I understand now that you can't do hard drugs without alcohol. And when he helped me to understand it, he said, you stop alcohol, you stop using drugs. And that's where the victory came in, where I went to this meeting, Narcotics Anonymous, 90 meetings in 90 days. And while I was in a council meeting, we had to find new friends and a new place to go. So a lot of the guys, some of them from prison, right? Some of them doing 10 years. They just came out of prison, 5 years, 4 years. Some were all in a room together. And the guys were going to church. All those guys were going to church because that's the only place that doesn't serve alcohol and is a good environment. One of the only places. So I started going to church. I went to several churches, but one day I was on my phone and I was just looking for a church. I wanted to go to a church somewhere far where nobody knows me. So I saw Durberry, look like a country church. That's what I thought. I never been to Durberry before, so that's how I got there. And while I was in church, afterwards they had food. That's where I met Raul, right? He came and he started talking to me, and he started encouraging me to come to church. And he was asking me some questions, but I was a little timid because it was really emotional what he was questions he was asking me, because I was still like new to coming back to church. I was still going to therapy, still battling drugs. So, every time I talk about my struggle, it was just a little emotional. So we exchanged numbers. And I think this is probably the part that really changed me. So Raul started texting me. So I came back to church and I started talking to him. And I think the thing that made the biggest impact is he came to our Narcotics Anonymous meeting with me, right? He came to my zone where I was going to therapy. And he came in and I was thankful for that. It meant a lot that, he didn't have to come, right? These people are not, all these people are trying to live healthy lives. And he came and, it really made an impact to me that, he cared. And we sat outside and we talked, and he encouraged me to keep coming to church. And I think the greatest blessing was meeting Raul. Now, while I was in the therapy, there's another thing you needed to do, right? You needed to get involved, right? So they keep telling you need to get involved, because getting involved will help you stay clean. So that's where Kim comes in now. Kim, she always wanted me to be in prison ministry, and she, every Sabbath she kept, asking me to, what would I like to get involved with? And I did not want to get involved at all. And she kept just, asking me every Sabbath. So, I did the prison ministry with her. And then on top of that, I met Joe. And I like Joe because Joe, he was more happy for my recovery than I was, right? So every Sabbath he would ask me like, how many days am I clean? You know what I mean? And in Narcotics Anonymous, if you can go 30 days clean, that's a big deal. If you can go 60 days clean, that's even great. 90 days, right? 120 days, then you get 6 months. And I would tell Joe, and he would be so excited, and it just kind of like meant a lot to me that not only people in my program was excited for me, right? I got people in church that is excited for my recovery, and what it did is it made me not ashamed to talk about it, right? Because a lot of times we are ashamed to talk about our addiction, right? Because if we say it, somebody might judge me, right? Not knowing the church was really an answer to my prayer, because everything I needed to do to complete the program, the church had it, right? And there in the church is where I started meeting new friends. And that was the key, because I needed to replace the 50 or 60 friends that I have that dealt drugs, right? I had deleted all the numbers in my phone, so I was back down to 0. And going to church and going to the potluck is where I was able to make friends and be able to start doing different activities on the weekend. So instead of me, you see, that's the key, right? Instead of me thinking about going to a bar or going to a house, I could go chill with Dion, right? I could go chill with the young adults, right? Because I needed to change people, places, and things. And now I realize why, now I look back on the stories, people come up to me in a restaurant or in Walmart, encouraging me to go to church. Well, God really proved it to be right, because the church had all the answers to my problems. And, I've been working at the law firm now for the last 4 months. In 4 months, I got promoted. I'm the lead accountant at the law firm. Although a lot of bad stuff happened in the last 3 years, in the end, God helped me to come out on top, right? Because I would have never imagined going from almost dying to being a lead accountant at a law firm in downtown Orlando. God gave me what I have currently and today, and I don't take it lightly. So that's what I'm currently doing, and I'm involved in the church, and I will always tell people, the church is the best thing available to anybody, because if we think anything else is better, I would encourage you to think again.